There is a person in your life who barely raises their voice. They listen more than they talk. They remember something you said 3 conversations ago, and they never bring it up unless it matters. Most people call that gentle, harmless, easy to overlook. That is the mistake. Because the quietest person in the room is almost always the one who understands it best. And understanding is the closest thing to real power that human beings have. By the end of this video, you will know exactly why psychologists consider this the most quietly formidable mind in the room. And you will understand something most people never figure out. The danger of an INFJ has nothing to do with cruelty. It has everything to do with accuracy. The INFJ is the rarest personality type in the Myers-Briggs system, somewhere between 1 and 2% of the population, which means you have met one. You may be one, and you almost certainly underestimated one. Here is what they look like from the outside. They are the friend who asks a single question and somehow ends up hearing your entire life story while telling you almost nothing about their own. They are the coworker who says nothing for the whole meeting, then offers one sentence at the end that reframes the entire problem. They are the person who forgives you 3 times and then one day, with no warning and no final argument, is simply gone. Psychologist Elaine Aron spent decades studying what she named the highly sensitive person. Her finding was not that some people are fragile. It was that some nervous systems process incoming information more deeply than average, running everything through more layers before it surfaces as a thought. INFJs sit at the far end of that spectrum. They do not just notice more than you. They cannot stop noticing. We are going to walk through 7 reasons this personality type earns the word dangerous. Each one goes deeper than the last, and the final one is the reason the label exists at all. Let us start with the thing that unsettles people first. Number 1, they read you before you finish your sentence. INFJs know things about you that you never told them. Not occasionally, constantly. Psychologist Nalini Ambady called this thin slicing. It is the brain's ability to draw startlingly accurate conclusions from tiny slivers of behavior. In her research, people watched a few seconds of silent video of a stranger and judged their warmth and competence at rates far better than chance. A few seconds. No words at all. Everyone has some version of this ability. The difference is that INFJs run it involuntarily, all day, on everyone. Your pause before answering, the half-second your smile arrives late, the word you chose instead of the obvious one. None of it gets filtered out. So when an INFJ tells you something is off about a person and cannot explain why, they are not guessing and they are not being dramatic. They are handing you the output of a calculation you never saw the inputs to. And most of the time, months later, you find out they were right. But reading people is only the surface. What an INFJ's mind does with that information afterward is where it gets genuinely unusual. Number 2. Their mind runs a working simulation of you. An INFJ does not simply observe you, they build a model of you, and they keep it running in the background. Carl Jung described introverted intuition as a function that operates almost entirely below conscious awareness. It takes in fragments and delivers a finished conclusion without ever showing its work. In an INFJ, that machinery is aimed at people. They absorb your patterns, your contradictions, the small gap between what you say you want and what you keep choosing, and they quietly assemble a working version of you inside their own head. This is why an INFJ can often tell you what you are going to do before you have decided to do it. They are not predicting your words, they are predicting your pattern. It is also why being wrong about someone wrecks them so completely. For most people, a betrayal is painful. For an INFJ, it means the model failed, which means their perception failed, which means the one thing they have always trusted about themselves just proved unreliable. They do not only grieve the person, they grieve the accuracy. Now, here is where it gets more complicated, because a skill like that never stays neutral for long. Number 3, empathy is morally neutral, and they know it. Empathy and kindness are not the same thing. They are 2 separate systems that happen to show up together in decent people. Daniel Goleman, who brought emotional intelligence into mainstream psychology, drew a hard line between feeling what another person feels and acting for their good. Understanding someone's inner world is a capability. What you do with that capability is a choice, made separately every single time. Therapists use deep empathy. So do interrogators. So do skilled manipulators. An INFJ knows precisely where your soft spots are. They know the one sentence that would end an argument by ending you. They know the insecurity you have never named out loud because they watched you protect it. The unsettling part is not that they would use any of it. Most of them never will. The unsettling part is that they could, that they have quietly thought about it, and that every day they choose not to. Their gentleness is not innocence, it is restraint. Those are very different things, and only one of them is a decision. And this next one? Almost everyone who has ever known an INFJ gets it completely backwards. Number 4. Their patience is not agreement. When an INFJ goes quiet during a conflict, most people assume they have won the argument. Research on conflict behavior consistently finds that silence is the least reliable signal in any disagreement. It can mean consent, exhaustion, avoidance, or a decision that has already been finalized. In an INFJ, it is almost always the last one. They do not argue while they are still gathering information, because arguing early tells you what they know, and they would rather keep that to themselves. So the person who believes they have been getting away with something for 2 years has not been getting away with anything. They have been watched carefully, patiently, the entire time, and when the INFJ finally does speak, it does not sound like an outburst. It sounds like a verdict. Calm, specific, and full of details you never realized anyone had been counting. If you are the kind of person who genuinely wants to understand people rather than just label them, and you are still here, that already tells me something about you. It would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week. Real psychology explained in a way that actually makes sense. Number 5, the door slam, and what it actually costs. There is a phenomenon so common among INFJs that it has its own name, the door slam. One day, the INFJ simply stops. No ultimatum, no final speech, no second chance. The relationship is over, and it is over permanently. Christina Maslach's research on burnout describes a stage she called depersonalization. When a person has been emotionally overextended for too long, their system stops generating feeling toward the people draining them. It is not a mood, and it is not a choice. It is a protective shutdown, and it arrives whether the person wants it or not. That is what a door slam actually is. Not revenge, not punishment. A circuit breaker tripping inside a nervous system that absorbed far more than it was ever built to carry. And here is the part nobody says out loud. It costs the INFJ more than it costs you. They rehearsed that ending for months. They gave you chances you never knew you were being given. They did not stop caring about you. They ran out of the thing that caring is made of, and there is no way to manufacture more of it on demand. But this is the root underneath all of it. Number 6, this was built, not born. No child arrives in the world scanning a room for danger. That gets trained into them. Family therapist Salvador Minuchin described a pattern he called parentification, where a child takes on the emotional job of managing the adults around them. Put that alongside John Bowlby's attachment research, and the picture becomes very clear. When a child's safety depends on correctly predicting an adult's mood, that child becomes extraordinarily good at predicting moods. The nervous system does not develop that skill as a gift. It develops it as a requirement. You can usually see the fingerprints of it in adulthood. The apology that arrives before anyone is even angry. The instinctive scan of a room on walking in. The discomfort with being taken care of, because being the one who needed something was never safe. So that uncanny perceptiveness you admire in an INFJ and occasionally find unnerving did not begin as a talent. For most of them, it began as a survival system in a house where they needed one and nobody ever switched it off. Which brings us to the last one, and honestly, the most important. Number 7. The most dangerous INFJ is the healed one. Everything you have heard so far describes an INFJ using their perception defensively. Watching for threats, managing other people's moods, bracing for something. Carl Rogers described a state he called congruence, where a person's inner experience and their outer expression finally line up. For most people, reaching congruence simply feels like peace. For someone with an INFJ's perceptual range, it does something else entirely. All that attention that was pointed inward at threat detection turns outward. And an instrument that precise, aimed at building instead of defending, is genuinely formidable. That is the INFJ who writes the thing that changes how you see your own life. Who builds the organization that treats people properly because they know exactly how people get treated badly. Who sits across from you and tells you the truth you have been avoiding, kindly and without flinching once. An unhealed INFJ reads the room to survive it. A healed INFJ reads the room and changes it. Same instrument, completely different purpose. So the next time you meet someone who barely raises their voice, who listens far more than they speak, who forgives more often than they probably should, you know what you are actually looking at. You are looking at someone whose mind never stopped taking notes. Someone whose kindness is not naivety, but a decision made again every morning by a person who could very easily choose otherwise. Someone who understood you long before you ever thought they were paying attention at all. That is the real danger of the INFJ. Not that they will hurt you. It is that they will see you exactly as you are, with nothing edited out, and then decide what to do about it. They will either stay when you gave them every reason to leave, or they will go without a single word of warning. And either way, they will have been right. If you want to go deeper on what happens inside that mind, I put together a video on why no one can control an INFJ that I think will hit just as hard. It is right here when you are ready.